Only three major nations remain on planet Earth in the year 2017 ATB, and two of them are breathing their dying gasps. The Holy Britannian Empire rules well beyond a third of the world, controlling the Western Hemisphere almost exclusively, and having acquired over a dozen so-called areas, whose populations and natural resources are bent towards the nobility's needs. Europaea United and the Chinese Federation are crumbling, ripe for the picking. Soon, all will hail Britannia. Britannia's military technology has an indisputable edge, the Nightmare Frame, spelled with a K at the front. A bipedal war machine with unanticipated agility and speed, as well as unchallenged firepower. Even antiquated Nightmare Frames are a thing to be feared by any military with a sense of self-preservation. Advanced ones are capable of incredible feats of athleticism and devastation, and can single-handedly demolish entire armies. But the Nightmare Frames depend on a power source, and the most efficient power source for a gigantic humanoid robot is Sakuradite. As the millennium of the ATB calendar passed, Britannia had one small complication on its hands. Sakuradite is a rare substance, found mostly in Japan, which produced approximately 70% of the world's supply. Britannia's answer came in 2010 ATB, and it was simple. They invaded and conquered Japan, renaming it Area 11, reclassifying its people as simply 11s, and stripping half of Mount Fuji bare. By 2017 ATB, Britannia is ready to take Europaea United on, and it has long awaited redemption for its defeat at the Battle of Trafalgar and the abandonment of the British Isles. It still faces sporadic resistance in places such as the Middle Eastern Federation, but it is in Area 11, the former Japan, where Britannia's manifest destiny is fated to unravel. A secret project is uncovered and captured by the Japanese Liberation Force. The operation goes sideways, and a Britannian high school student named Lelouch Lamperouge intercedes in what he thinks is a commonplace trucking accident. When the project's true nature comes to light, as a mysterious woman offering Lelouch the power to change his future, he accepts, revealing himself to be the lost Britannian prince Lelouch v. Britannia. He begins a long quest to set right a broken world and get revenge against his father, Emperor Charles Z. Britannia, for the death of his mother, the crippling of his sister, and the destruction of his best friend's nation. This is the world of Code Geass, and you're watching, or perhaps listening to, Dystopian Review, the place where we dream of nightmare worlds. Please note there will be spoilers. This episode of Dystopian Review is brought to you by Locker's Rebellion, my upcoming science fiction fantasy novel. Unlike Code Geass, Locker's Rebellion isn't a dystopian story. If anything, it's noble bright. Or aetherpunk. Or something fun. Catherine London, an arcane scientist for the Kingdom of Amor, is alarmed when her much-needed vacation with her swordswoman wife Clarice is interrupted with a summons to the capital. The kingdom has always had trouble keeping the Principality of Prescia in line, but a peasant uprising striving for independence is brewing, and it falls to Kathy and Clarice to track down its ringleader. There are just two problems making Prescia an awful place for Kathy. First, the theocratic principality is hostile to nonconformist relationships like hers. Second, her arcane gifts are viewed as witchcraft. But when an ancient relic tied to Prescia's mythological savior is stolen through what can only be magic, the uprising's leader gains an air of legitimacy. Kathy would love nothing more than to leave this problem to someone else, but if she did, if the rebellion succeeded, it would strip the kingdom's protection away from those like her who call Prescia their home. She and Clarice cannot risk leaving others like them to a theocracy's scant mercies. When an opportunity to both quell the rebellion and place a more reform-minded cleric in charge of the principality emerges, Kathy has a first-hand opportunity to help guide him to the right side on both core issues. That leaves her with two unknowns: whether or not they'll be in time, and what they'll find when they get there. Locker's Rebellion is a fantasy action story which plays out like your favorite aetherpunk battle manga centered around themes of queer liberation and self-acceptance. Pick it up if you're ready to stand up and defend the defenseless. If you're interested in learning more about Locker's Rebellion, check out the top links in this video's description, and thank you so much for considering. Anyway, back to our irregularly scheduled nightmare world. Stage 1. the setting of Code Geass. Code Geass is set in an alternate history from our own. Alternate histories are exactly what they sound like, a world very similar to our own, but which has had a different history from ours. To really get in touch with what that means, I want to throw a phrase your way. Point of divergence. A point of divergence, as seen on the screen, is an event in history that went a different way from our own, leading to a different timeline emerging. In Code Geass, at least according to the Code Geass wiki, which will be linked in the description of this video, the first point of divergence takes place in 55 BCE. If you're watching and not listening, you've probably pieced it all together by now. It's got to do with the Roman invasion of the British Isles. Instead of being partially defeated by Julius Caesar and ultimately subjugated by Emperor Claudius, a war chief named Alwyn I repels the Roman attack and the inhabitants of the British Isles retain their independence. Now, part and parcel of the setting, Lelouch isn't entirely certain that Alwyn existed as anything more than a propaganda piece, but it's known that the Romans never took Britain. There are other events I'd consider points of divergence as well. Two critical ones are the failure of Washington's rebellion and the Britannian defeat at Trafalgar. In our timeline, well, I'm what we call American, so you know Washington's rebellion succeeded, right? In Code Geass, it didn't go so well for us. The revolution was a failure, and the British maintained control over the 13 colonies. But also in our timeline, the British won the Battle of Trafalgar, helping to lead to Napoleon's demise. In Code Geass, the Britannians are not just defeated, but invaded by Napoleon's army. Its upper crust is forced to flee to Britannia's American colonies, where they manage to retain most of their power and eventually grow it across the entire hemisphere. And let's just hand-wave away the fact that a massive historical sea change during the Roman days means that Washington and Napoleon would probably never exist, okay? Just as an aside, if you find this category of storytelling interesting, I like to recommend Cody from Alternate History Hub. He's actually done a sort of alternate history on what might have happened if Napoleon managed to win Trafalgar and invade Britain. While it doesn't feature giant mechs or magic powers, it's certainly a fun watch. If you're a history bum, check it out. Back to Code Geass. With the Holy Empire of Britannia spread so wide so quickly after its defeat, blood purity became a priority. Social hierarchies remained extremely rigid, with the landed nobility serving as a ruling caste, and with those of impure blood being considered less than. While it's not explicitly stated in the show, this gives me vibes of colonial Spain's insanely convoluted form of racism towards natives, limpieza de sangre, meaning purity of blood. This is tied into the Spanish and Portuguese concepts of casta, but even America has versions of this which linger into today. Just take a look at the American South and you will see it in action. Then there's the fact that the world of Code Geass exists at a higher technological level than ours does, particularly when it comes to military arms. The real-world analogs to the nightmare frames are hardly even in the experimental phase. This is hypothetically because the Britannian ATB calendar is incongruous to the Gregorian Anno Domini AD1 if it's measuring time since Caesar's invasion of Britain, as that would provide a difference of about 55 years. Then again, by the end of the show, these giant mechs are equipped with flight-capable anti-gravity wings, meaning technology's rapid advancement may be due to some other factor, such as the nature of Sakuradite. Finally, the biggest difference from our reality is that there is a small but extremely powerful group with access to what is essentially a magic power. Called Geass, this power can take many forms. Our protagonist Lelouch is given the power of absolute command. So long as he has direct eye contact and is within range, he can give any person he chooses one order to do whatever it is he needs done. Another Geass user has the power to stop everyone's perception of time within a certain radius. A third has the power to hear people's thoughts, only he hears everyone's thoughts because he's lost control of his Geass completely. And bear in mind, it is all too easy for this power to overcome someone's control, as it provides an easy solution to almost any problem, and that can be damn near addictive. After all, wouldn't you at least consider using Lelouch's power if it would save an innocent person from harm? Wouldn't you be able to find an ethical path forward? And that leads us into talking about Code Geass's themes. Stage 2, the themes of Code Geass. There are three major themes of Code Geass that I want to highlight with this video. And the first is what we've been talking about when it comes to the use of Geass itself, that there is a cost of obtaining power to one's sense of self. The second is that the resistance to colonialism, imperialism, and racism is worthwhile. The third is the idea that those who resist and perpetuate these things live by the sword and may well die by the sword. Let's further touch on the first, the overarching cost of obtaining power to one's sense of self. Lelouch's desires begin simple enough. He wants to create a better world in line with his kind, gentle sister Nonali's dreams. This goal is, of course, immediately corrupted by his own desires for revenge against those who harmed her in the first place, but to his credit, he does ultimately at least try to make the world a better place. He just doesn't prioritize those who are hurt by his actions. After all, Lelouch must juggle 3 different lives. First, he is Lelouch Lambrouge, a smart but undermotivated high school student. Second, he is Lelouch v Britannia, Lost Prince of the Empire. Third, he is Zero, the leader of the revolutionary movement called the Black Knights, and the only one capable of overthrowing the Britannian grasp on the world. None of these 3 lives fit together neatly. There are occasions when a lot of innocent people die as someone hunting for one of these lives comes into contact with someone who is part of another. Second, Code Geass focuses heavily on themes surrounding colonialism, imperialism, and racism. This is one of those who put politics in anime moments, because politics are in everything, even genres sometimes known for escapism. The political edge is so naked that at one point Lelouch's childhood friend, the Britannian ace pilot Suzaku, openly pines about the nature of racism against Japanese people and how he is fighting back within the system, versus how Zero is using violence and getting people killed in the process. Just the fact that the identity of Japanese is prohibited and instead people are referred to as 11s is heavy-handed, but also exactly how racism has worked throughout history. Area 11 is a colony of Britannia like so many others, and Britannia's imperialism is the entire context of the story. For those wondering, yes, politics is in just about everything. That's why I mentioned the American South earlier. See also redistricting. But let's get back to the irony of Lelouch's methodology, because in so many ways he is no different than the Empire he fights against. He's perfectly willing to use literal mind control to accomplish his goals, damn the consequences to his pawns. At best, they'll be held accountable for the actions they committed while under the influence of his Geass, even though they'll have no memory of it whatsoever. At worst, their orders are literally suicidal and their lives are disposed of. If imperialism is bad because it strips the freedom and identity of its victims away, what does it say that the person leading the fight against it is mentally enslaving people and then disposing of them? The answer lies somewhere in the third theme Code Geass explores, which is that those who are prepared to kill must be prepared to be killed, even if the cause is a righteous one, such as addressed in Theme 2. While it's true Lelouch disregards the value of life in pursuit of military victory, the overwhelming majority of the time, it's the lives of the combatants who he takes. For example, he frequently uses Geass to create conditions which are favorable to him in battle, causing enemies to sabotage their own defenses or attack their own allies in order to achieve some end Lelouch has. Take the first battle at the Tokyo settlement, when Lelouch's victims destroyed the columns supporting the settlement's megastructure. In this way, the show makes clear that the life of a warrior is very different from the life of a civilian. I wouldn't know. I am a civilian, and while I know what it's like to be in a fistfight, I have no idea what it's like to live the life of a soldier. The show focuses most of its attention, in that regard, on the pilots of nightmare frames, and a lot of characters' final moments are in their cockpits, saying symbolic farewells which mark either satisfaction that they're laying their lives down for their cause, or final regrets of deeds undone. As sort of a final coda, a new type of weapon is developed over the course of the story, the Flea. It is, for all intents and purposes, a nuclear bomb, even if it doesn't function exactly like one. There are 2 main distinctions I can think of. First, there's no discussion of radiation. Although that doesn't mean there isn't any, it does stand to reason that a society as advanced as Britannia would know what to look for when it comes to that. Secondly, there's a way to essentially cancel out the explosion with the right technology and circumstances. Maybe that's because Fleas are based on Sakuradite instead of real-world nuclear physics? Who's to say? Part of Lelouch's answer to the Flea is to deploy large contingents of soldiers he'd Geassed into total obedience. The best metaphor I have is that they serve as living shock absorbers who take a blast, die, then get filled back in with replacements. They die serving as ballistic missile interceptors. It's the most basic of meat grinder strategies in that Lelouch's army simply absorbs casualties because his only other solution is a highly experimental, untested answer to the Flea, and he needs to gamble his entire hopes for victory on using it at the right moment because he can only use it once, if he succeeds at all. And while it doesn't absolve him, it involves him getting up close and personal with the Flea himself, an acceptance of the same risks that the rest of his soldiers took when they joined the military in the first place. The key difference is that his consent is maintained. For the most part, theirs is not. Ultimately, Lelouch succeeds at defeating the Flare warhead and even at capturing the Britannian throne. He defeats the combined forces of his brother Schneisel and his beloved sister Nonnally, who is dragged into the war as Lelouch's opponent. As to his first decision as emperor, I'll leave that for you to watch on your own if this review piques your interest. All I'll suggest is that you watch the anime series instead of the remake movies, and then, if you're really interested in what happens next, read all the differences between the two continuities before picking up the sequel movie. Until then, all hail Britannia. And don't forget to check out Locker's Rebellion, debuting May 22nd, links in the description of this video. Thank you all so much for watching and for joining me as we dreamt of yet another nightmare world. I just want to thank you again for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please, the number one thing you can do to support this channel is like the video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that you're watching so I know to keep making more of it. If this video is successful and if I can find a way to overcome Netflix's copyright restrictions, I'll be doing Terminator 0 next. I want to thank Carl Casey at Wipeout Audio for all of the music that I used in this video. I want to thank Sunrise for making Code Geass. I want to thank Ichiro Okuchi for writing Code Geass. I gotta give props for how well it's written. Props to the Code Geass wiki for making image sourcing easy. Thanks to Cody from Alternate History Hub for simplifying the point of divergence concept. Thanks to anyone I failed to credit in case there's someone that just skipped my mind. And yeah, all this work was done by me, Jesse Pullman. So, all your support would be really appreciated. Thank you so much for joining me and as always on this channel. Pieces.